Here is like the full-on shot of all three. Here's the envelope where I did the lip of the envelope with the embossed ties. Then here is the one that I've got a blue panel that's going to be glued to a white cardstock. And then here I've got it embossed directly on a smaller trimmed piece of cardstock that's folded up in a card for like a 4x6. And so now all I've got to do is decide what sentiments that I want on there, and then get my chalk on the white here. And I may not do any kind of chalk on this, but at least do the ombre effect here on this card. And then this, for this panel, I can leave it either like this, or I'm going to come around here with some craft scissors to give it a pretty trim. And then you can do some fine grit sandpaper to kind of go along the edges to give it a distressed look on the raised portions of the blue design, so it'd kind of be like this blue with a kind of distressed white look to the tie. Or you can go in through here with some ink, just kind of rub along the colors, or you can go through with your markers, glitter glue, whatever. The possibilities are endless. You can even use embossing powders if you want to. Happy crafting! So there is my first experience with my Sizzix Big Shot, and I have the powder blue and teal. I really did like this machine. If you want to emboss the fold or the lip of your envelope for your card, you can do that as well. I ran it through the one side, and then I just have about 2.5 inches left that I'm going to try to get the ties just on this little edge right here. I'm not going to let it go all the way down because I've already got an impression the rest of the way down. Okay, I've pulled out a bunch of my supplies here. I've got some black ink that I can stamp up. I've got some holiday stamps here. This number 1 Dad. I think that will fit nicely inside my scalloped punch. It's a 2 1/4 inch punch. That will fit in there to create kind of a border. Okay, I've got some glitter alphabet stickers that are small enough to be able to fit on a button about the size of a nickel. And then I've got a glitter pen that I'm going to be using with one of my scallop punches, my 1/2 inch scallop punch, or I could even use just the round non-scalloped to put glue onto the smaller buttons here. And just handwrite the initial in a blue glitter pen. And then I'm going to be using some lovely Dimensional Magic Mod Podge, just the plain old clear. I've got out some of my little scissors here, my craft scissors. This one is sort of gives the effect of like a postage stamp border around the edges of my card stack. And then on the other style of card is where I can use the chalk. Some of these here I'm going to decorate with some baker's twine that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to get started and decorate these cards and then make the little tie tack. Some of these little, they're actually for hair clips, but I'm going to use them as tie tacks. They are 1 inch wide, and it's like an alligator clip, except it's got a kind of an oval base right here that I can glue a button on. When I trimmed down the cards, I had some of the cardstock left over. So what I can do is take my lovely little punch and just punch out a 1/2 inch circle. If I were to put that, okay, on here, it's not going to fit that size button. Let's see if it, nope, it won't fit that size button either. So those are about the size of a dime. However, it will fit this nickel sized button that I have. It's kind of got a lip on it. I'm going to go down to a 3/8 of an inch punch, and bingo, that worked nicely. Make a template out of these that I've already punched out. I'm going to lay that on top of the cardstock that I'm still working with, and then I can take my glitter pen and write the initial that I want inside that circle without going out of the edges, and then go over there and punch it, and it'll be perfect. So it's a blue glitter. So there's just a little hint of sparkle. On this layered card, I've got a couple options. I can put this right here in the middle, or I can move this towards the top and have a little part here on the bottom where I can then glue this panel down on top, then take a hole punched scalloped edge and glue that down on top. Have some baker's twine here on the bottom. So this is a Fisker stamp set. It's got one for every holiday just about. Cut my edges off. The panel all trimmed up. You can see how it's more fancy. Now you can use Mod Podge to put this down. You can use glue sticks. You can also use double-sided stick tape. Here's that tag that I was talking about. So now I've got to stamp. When you're trying to match a stamp to whatever embellishment that you're doing, you want to be sure that it fits. I'm going to take some twine on the bottom of my card. I'm going to take some of this Beacon 3-in-1 craft glue. Just tack it down here. You can also use some toothpicks to clean it up a little bit here on the edge. I can put this right here in the middle. I can kind of go off here. It's really a personal preference. I am, however, going to do the pop-up dots. This just gives a little bit of dimension. You can even distress this a little bit with some fine sandpaper. Now this is just going to be a light effect, so you don't really want to go crazy. It's going to kind of come in everywhere that's raised. Now it's even easier to see that. Just make sure you get any little specks off of there. This is 1200 grit, fine grit sandpaper. Another option that you could do is the chalk. You didn't have any fine grit sandpaper. So to have a good contrast, I don't know, I think that blue, because it's so light, I think that's going to work. I'm going to take a little bit of this glue to put it on the button for this paper. Then I'm going to take a letter and do D for Dad. How ingenious. In the center, I'm going to grab a little post-it note to protect my barrier here. And then I'm going to take this Dimensional Magic and I'm just going to fill in this well. And try not to have any bubbles. If I do have a bubble, then I'll need to try to get it out. I'm going to do one that was the hole punch. This one I'm going to do a blue button. This one, I can use chalk, which I'm going to grab a piece here of this blue. I'm going to go from green down into blue. So I'm just going to take this chalk and lightly rub over the raised areas, being careful not to press the chalk into the non-raised areas. Knock off the excess. Then I'm switching over to blue now. So I got some Q-tips here. What I should have done first was some of this embossing powder to get the static off of your page. Powder would even work. Most of it is gone. It kind of has an ombre effect because it's going from that green down into a sort of a teal blue color. Maybe this one we could do the middle, and then maybe we do blue and green twine on the bottom. What do you think? Like you're gonna answer me, but I like to imagine that you're here with me. Just leave it just like that. There are two different versions of some Father's Day cards. This one over here is a 4x6 card, and then this is a 5x7 card. Now I've got this here where I did the embellished ties on the lip, and I'm not going to do anything to that because that's just, you know, dressy for the card. I'm just using one of my sticker packages here, taking my E6000 glue. Remember, most people are right-handed. I'm going to take one of these little pieces of paper on the back side of the button. I want to be sure that my little button is positioned where I want it. And I'm just going to go ahead and clip her back on. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the larger button. I've got the buttons drying. I've got this cellophane, sort of like wax paper, because then that won't stick as the glue dries. This is actually my second batch of these cards. For this round of cards, instead of the little ties, I've decided I wanted a little bit larger. I am using an 8.5 by 8.5 scrapbook paper, which has a pattern on it already, so the only ink I'm using is the black. Doing it this size though, your clip is going to be up here and you can still see a lot of the design left. This is the same template as the small ties that I did on my first batch of cards. However, I sized it to where it was a photo instead of just a sheet of paper, and I did it as a 5 by 7. When I did that, it made the ties larger. Now it's more blurry, but you can go back with a marker just to reinforce it. As far as the size of these ties, it is almost 4 inches long, and at the widest, just a little bit over 1 inch wide. I'm just going to use some double stick tape at the top of the tie because I want the rest of the tie to be loose in order for you to be able to pull the tie clip or the tie tack off and on. And here are the inside, the two different types of ties. When you close it, it's a blue and green theme in the chalk on the outside, as well as the little number 1 dad stamped flower here that I've got. So now the only thing that I'm doing is just waiting for the little tie tack buttons to dry. It usually takes about 3 to 4 hours for this dimensional Mod Podge to solidify. Give you a little tip on these tie tacks here that have the pins. If you have any kind of styrofoam, either an egg carton, a little coffee cup that are those styrofoams, or I've just got this packaging that was out of the Sizzix machine that I have over here. Just poked it into the styrofoam to where I have a little bit of a gap. So then on this piece of styrofoam, I've got this lovely little button now glued to the top of the pin, and I'm going to let that dry. Another little tip for you, this little tie tack that I did, I used a 1/8 inch hole punch, pre-punch a hole into the paper tie, and then I was able to just feed the tie tack through there. So I'm outside. This is the first card that I made that has the extra layer here, like the panel on top, and when you open it up, that little tie is holding the tie tack, and you can write your message in the card. This is the smaller 4x6 card where I use the chalk on it. I think that this is a really cute Father's Day project. You'll have an envelope, has sort of a hint of the ties that the theme is going to be. So if you try this Father's Day card project, make sure you give me a holler on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, or Facebook. Just use the hashtag Sparkle by Monica. I'd love to see what you make. So I hope you enjoyed this little Father's Day project. I enjoyed making the cards and having my first little session with embossing and my Sizzix Big Shot machine, so that was kind of fun. Dear old Dad will always have that lovely tie clip to remember your Father's Day card, even if the Father's Day card mysteriously disappears. Does that really ever happen? No, surely not. We'd like to think our parents always keep all of our cards. If you hand make a card like this, it's a lot more special than just buying it at Hallmark or, you know, Walmart or the drugstore or wherever you're getting it. I would like to think for these handmade cards that these would be cherished keepsake in a box somewhere, or maybe even like a little photo album. So there's a good little idea for you. But I don't judge. The fun is in making the card, especially suited to whoever it is, whatever the occasion is, if it's just a thinking of you type of card. But this is a Father's Day project, and I had fun making it. Have a sparkle-riffic Father's Day, y'all. Bye!